within the scope of dentistry, I felt like I had achieved what I was going to achieve. And for me to achieve more in that realm, I would have had to make a lot of sacrifices to work towards something that wasn't necessarily that interesting to me.
Okay.
Like deeper, more intense dentistry, more technical skill, which actually took me further away from the human side of what I love doing, which didn't interest me. So then at that point, it was a conversation about, okay, if I've reached the limit with this, then what else is there out there? And I think for many people, they don't even get to the point of having that conversation because they are just, I'm a dentist and that's who I am, or I'm an engineer and that's who I am.
Welcome to another episode of Waves of Wisdom. In this episode, joining with me is a dentist turned communication expert all the way from Singapore, and we are recording here in Malé City in Maldives. And she has been a dentist most of her life, but she found a different passion, a different purpose in her life. And this is what we are going to explore today. And join me in welcoming Dr. Damini Chawla to a wonderful conversation. Welcome to the show, Dr. Damini.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Iyaz, for making this happen.
How are you enjoying Maldives?
Oh, it's been amazing. I'm not ready to go home. I might live here now.
Most of the people do, right? So I have seen a couple of your keynotes and a couple of sharing of your stories. But can you, for our audience, can you tell how actually your current passion or purpose came to being or existence, or how you found it?
So, as you said, I've been a dentist for many, many years. I know I don't look it, I look very young, but I had been practicing dentistry for a long time. I think when I was, 16, 17, I had this idea in my head that by the time I'm 30, I want to be a doctor of some kind. I want to be married and I want to have 2 kids. And I want to be living outside of Australia. That was my sort of criteria of how I would measure success at the age of 30 when I was in my late teens. And by the time I was 31, I had achieved those things that I'd set out to do. So it was a year later, but, by 31, I ticked all those boxes. And I think when you live your life on that sort of tick box exercise, at some point for me, I got to the point where I said, well, okay, now I've ticked off all these boxes that I had on my list, and what's next? And so I think, like any good Asian kid, I thought to myself, well, do I do an MBA? Do I do a master's degree? Do I go do a master's in public health and go into policy making? What does that next step look like? But I think we're so conditioned to attach our identity to the degree that we have or to the job that we have. So in my mind, initially, when I started to think about this, it was I was very trapped in the idea that I'm a dentist and that's all I know and that's what I've studied and that's what I've worked as for so many years. And so I think I had to actually just take the leap and quit my job to create enough mental headspace to think about what are the other transferable skills that I have learned along the way as a dentist. So when I'm doing dentistry, okay, the physical aspect of checking teeth, drilling teeth, diagnosing patients, that's only one part of dentistry. But there's so many other skills involved and there's so many other aspects of that work that I really enjoy. Far more than I enjoy drilling people's teeth and giving them pain, right? So I think what I really enjoyed about the dentistry was the human connection and the relationship building and the trust and the communication with other people. And so as I started to create the space to explore what transferable skills I'd picked up along the way, I was then able to sort of think about what more can I do with these transferable skills that allow me to break away from this boxed identity of a dentist.
Mhm. So what was that transferable?
Well, then
Yeah.
you know, I started to I got on stages. I started to do a bit of speaking, and at the same time, I did my coaching training because I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I still felt like, well, okay, I want to be on stages. I want to be a professional speaker, but why should anyone take me
Yeah.
seriously? And you know, when I say communication, you don't automatically think dentist, right? Like that's not where you go to have a
Yeah.
great amount of communication. So I felt like I needed to justify my existence as a speaker, as someone who focuses on communication and human connection. And so I did my coaching training and I started to get on stages and put myself in places that really allowed me to grow and learn. And yeah, and here we are today.
Yeah, wonderful. And this was much, this story is much after you graduated from your studies in Australia and then moving to Singapore and everything, right? So you were schooled in Australia or in India?
So I lived in India till I was sort of 13, 14.
All right. Yeah.
And then I moved to China. So I went to international school in Beijing for a while and then moved to Australia when I was 15. So I finished high school and then I went to dental school in Australia in Perth.
Yeah. So growing up back in India and while you were in China, did you find speaking or what you are doing now interesting, or how were you passionate about? Were you participating in anything like that?
Yeah, I've always been interested. So I loved theater. If I had had my way, I would have gone to acting school.
Wonderful.
But my parents told me I needed to get a real degree that would pay my bills.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in dental school. But you know, that was my passion, and I wanted to go to acting school. Throughout my time in school as well, I was in debate club. I did Model United Nations. In Australia in my school, I always had leadership positions from pretty much the first year that I joined. So peer support, I was the social services prefect. So there was always opportunities to publicly speak, and I feel like I took a lot of them.
Yeah. So when you are thinking about these transferable skills at certain point in your career, did you reflect back on what you were good at, what you were passionate about? How did you come to decide that this is the thing I need to do? Now you are more passionate about acting and theater, but then now you are coming to a different type of acting, I guess.
I don't know if this is acting. I think what we do as professional speakers, I think the work that I do today, I have no doubt in my mind that this is my life's work. And I think as I really did, you're right, I did reflect a lot on, you know, okay, I used to love to do this. I used to be good at this. I've always enjoyed this. What can I do with this? I think the important distinction and the reason why I didn't want to go down the theater and acting path at this stage, one is, I think to really make it big as an actor or in theater, you have to start quite young. And I do feel, I know I look young, I've already established this, but I do feel like I'm kind of over my prime with that. So I can do that as a hobby. I don't think I can do that as something that pays the bills. But also, I think over the years, there is a depth of what I bring to the table that I would want to showcase and serve people with, which I don't know that through pure acting or theater I can. So yes, you can connect with an audience, you can act in plays and theater productions that really bring out certain aspects of society, and art is a huge form of expression. But I think the work that I do today is really getting deep into human behavior, really interacting and cutting to the meat of changing human behavior and helping people be their best selves. which really gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah. So does that mean actually somebody's passion can evolve or change over time?
Absolutely. I
Mm.
think, passion can be quite a fleeting thing.
Mm.
And it's an interesting conversation I was having recently with a friend who was thinking of a business idea so she just had a kid recently, and she was thinking of a business idea around young babies and, the needs of mums around young babies. And I see this a lot in female entrepreneurs, especially, where they have a passion,
Mhm.
but that passion is very it's very attached to a life phase that they're in. So, it might be, oh, my baby's young and I don't have a social circle, and so I'm going to start a business around creating a social circle for moms. But then the baby becomes 2 or 3 or 4 years old, they start going to school, life gets really busy, and now you're no longer passionate about that thing because it was attached to a life phase. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But it does mean that it's not necessarily a sustainable thing, because you won't be as interested in it 4 years, 5 years, 6 years down the line, when it's no longer relevant to you, unless you've gone and had another kid, or or you're in that life phase again. I see a lot of people, there's coaches out there who coach purely on like navigating career transitions. I coach people on navigating career transitions, but it's not something that I would classify as like the bread and butter of what I do, because people look to me for it because I've done it successfully, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's what I'm passionate about or what's going to carry me long term. So yeah, I absolutely think passion can change. I think purpose is probably something that's a little deeper than passion.
So how you came to find that purpose then in your passion? Does the passion come first or the purpose comes first? Came first for you?
I think purpose for me goes way back. So, I would say my purpose, the way I see it, is to serve. It's to use my privilege to the best of my ability to serve the people around me. And so when I think back to when I was in university and I was not going to be going to acting school, and I had to think about, okay, what do I do now? So my choices were medicine, dentistry, humanitarian law. I had very clear ideas of what I would study, because it had to somewhere end up in service of others. So I think that from a purpose perspective was always very clear for me. And so everything that I have done since, I think, has in some way, shape, or form led to that. And I think today, when I think about, again, I have these deep philosophical conversations with friends, but when I think about what is it that drives me every day, what is my purpose, it's actually quite a simple, basic thing that I feel like I want every individual human being who interacts with me in whatever way, shape, or form, I want them to leave that interaction feeling like they're better off for it. And better off for it doesn't mean happier. I'm not responsible for everyone's happiness. But if the interaction that we have helps us grow, both people, helps us grow, helps us think about the world in a different way, helps to challenge us in a way that serves us, that's what I see as my purpose.
Oh, that's quite fascinating, because now your passion, when it aligns with a purpose, because somebody can have a passion which is not actually relating to people or serving people, right? Somebody might have a passion for taking care of trees, for example, or planting trees, or gardening, for example, or farming. Somebody can have a passion for playing football or some other sports, isn't it? So it's, do you think it is necessary to have a passion and align with their purpose? Because if sometimes you said passion also keeps on changing. So what will happen if it's not aligned or intertwined with the purpose?
I think if you have a purpose, if you truly have a purpose and you identify what your purpose is, at some level you will be passionate about it.
Okay.
You will be passionate about your purpose and fulfilling that purpose. Is it important to have a passion and have your passion align with your purpose? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, to be very honest, because like I said, the way I see it is passion can be very fleeting. Passion to me can be a little bit fickle. You know, it comes and goes. It can be in waves. And so would I rely on passion? Probably not. But would I be driven by purpose? Yes. And I think if you can find a meaningful enough purpose that really, truly drives you, then everything you do then that takes you towards that purpose, you will be passionate about, I think.
Wonderful. And at this phase of your life, when you are, was that a struggle or was that a self-doubt, or did you, I'm sure after you wanted to, you must have gone through a lot of imposter syndrome, but I mean, just go back to just before that. Why actually did you question, or is there a reason which actually made you question whether that dentistry is not the thing you might be doing for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I think it's multifold. One is I just felt like I wasn't growing. Like I felt like I had reached a ceiling with my interest and my desire and maybe my passion, right? I wasn't passionate about dentistry. I was passionate about the people that I treated, but not about the actual dentistry. So at that point, for me to keep growing, and I think growth is a very important value to me. I value learning and growth and doing better and pushing myself and, you know, expanding my horizons. And so within the scope of dentistry, I felt like I had achieved what I was going to achieve. And for me to achieve more in that realm, I would have had to make a lot of sacrifices to work towards something that wasn't necessarily that interesting to me. Like deeper, more intense dentistry, more technical skill, which actually took me further away from the human side of what I love doing, which didn't interest me. So then at that point, it was a conversation about, okay, if I've reached the limit with this, then what else is there out there? And I think for many people, they don't even get to the point of having that conversation because they are just, I'm a dentist and that's who I am, or I'm an engineer and that's who I am. And I think the other thing is as well, for me, I feel very, very lucky and very privileged to have been in a financial situation where I was able to explore that. You know, for a lot of people, they're just trying to pay the bills and make ends meet. And so it's not an option. So for me, I think it was a combination of, I'm not growing here. It's not really giving me joy to the extent that I want to invest more money and time into learning more in this realm. So if I'm going to invest time and money and learning, then I may as well expand my horizons and look at what else there is that really fulfills my soul.
So basically, growth was what was driving you, right? And this is actually a very important aspect you highlighted, that because a lot of people get stuck in trying to achieve what they really want, mainly because of their financial commitments or financial situation. So, if you don't mind, how you got to that independence of
I married a
not
great man.
that's a shortcut for most
Well,
of
it's
the
not a
women.
shortcut. I
Yeah.
started dating him when we were 19, so I made him who he is. No, I'm
All
joking,
right.
but
Yeah.
no, I think we've built a life together, and I'm very, very fortunate that I have a partner who is very supportive and very encouraging. And we had some very real conversations, that at the end of the day, Singapore is a very expensive city. We have 2 young kids. We've got international school fees to pay, high rental. There's a lifestyle that we like having, and we have to continue paying for that. So the conversation that we had was, I'm going to give myself a year, right? So I'll quit. I'll take 1 year off. And what is our worst case scenario in that year? Okay. Our worst case scenario was, if God forbid he were to lose his job, I know I can walk into any dental clinic and I'll have a job the next day.
Wonderful.
Right.
Because you had that kind of.
Yeah. And I had a wonderful relationship with my boss as well. Even when I resigned, so, now I go back into the clinic. I come and go as I please. I'm in there once every few weeks. I still see my old patients because my patients want to see me. So we have a very wonderful working relationship. And I knew that the door was open. So I knew that I had that fallback option if something were to go wrong with his work. And on the other side, we said, okay, if I end up taking a year off and I don't figure out anything, right? Say I don't find that passion. I don't find that thing that like makes me tick, that I love, because you've had, 38 years of your life or whatever, where you've just been living this tick box life, and you've been practicing as a dentist for X many years, and that's what your identity is. Maybe 1 year isn't enough to figure it out, but take that year, right? And if in that 1 year, I don't figure anything out, and if at the end of that 1 year, we feel like financially we are not comfortable enough, then I can go back to dentistry. And the worst thing that will have happened for that year is that I will have spent that 1 year focusing on our 2 kids, right? And if our 2 children get mommy's undivided attention for a year because mommy's not working and she's around a lot more, that's not a very bad worst case scenario. It's kind of almost the best case scenario. So we had these conversations around the finances of what that decision meant and what it would look like, and what situations or scenarios in which I would need to just pull the plug and go back to dentistry. And so I think we were very clear about what that looks like and what the practicalities of the situation are. So I think that's a very important part, to be able to know what I mentioned this in the MAPSA event as well, that know what your fallbacks are, know what your safety nets are, because those will allow you to take more risks. But it's important to have the safety nets.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very important you build that up to that level, and then you take the risk. But this conversation you had with your husband was actually before you decided to become a professional speaker, right? That's what you're doing now. So after that, how did it came about? So you quit the job and then you started exploring?
I quit the job. No, so actually I started exploring before I quit the job. So, and again, this is the other thing that I tell my coachees this as well. You don't have to stop being one person and become someone completely new overnight. That's not necessarily how transitions have to work. It's important to start sowing seeds around you to sort of explore, what does it look like? So like I said to you, I thought I checked out MBA programs. I checked out the Masters in Public Health and policy making. I had some very big conversations with very important people around all the possible paths that I was exploring. And it was only when I'd done all of this research and figured out that actually it was not any of these straightforward options, and now I don't have the bandwidth to think beyond what I know, and I need some time off. So it was an interesting time for us because my husband was also in between jobs. So he had another job lined up, but he was on gardening leave. And so he had 6 months off work, and the summer was coming. And so I quit just before the summer. We went to Greece. We were in Greece for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks with the kids. It was just a beautiful time. I wasn't stressed. I was able to just be very present. And then when we came back from the holidays, my younger daughter started big girl school. I was able to be there to see her through that transition. My husband started his new job, so I was able to be present for him for his transition. And so, it just worked out, the timing of it, really beautifully. And as they started to sort of settle into their new roles, out of nowhere, a very random opportunity came up for me where somebody on a group chat on WhatsApp said that they were looking for an MC/narrator for an event that they were organizing, and they didn't have a budget to pay for it. And I just thought, why not? And I think that's sort of been my mantra of, if I'm trying something new and I'm doing something that's not dentistry, then why not? And so I said yes, and I took that up, and that sort of, one thing led to another from that point forward. And I was on stage, and I remember being on that stage in front of a few hundred people and thinking, this is where I'm meant to be. And then that led to another event I mentioned to you before. It led to another event where I was emceeing this concert with 15,000 people in the indoor stadium. And it was me on a stage and 15,000 people. And not for one moment did I feel like this is not where I belong. But what I did feel was, okay, this is cool. This is where I belong. This is where I want to be. But how do I serve people through this? And what is the impact, and what is the depth, and where is, and so then from there, it was really figuring out, how do you find that depth? So as I said, I did my coaching training, and then, I joined APSS, which is the Professional Speakers Association in Singapore. And that gave me so much growth and so much learning and so much exposure to different people, to mentors, to different ways of thinking and knowledge, and really opened my eyes up to a whole other world out there. That's the story, that's the journey.
So if you want to look back and give an advice to your younger self, like when you are 19, 20, just out of school and now deciding to, you said you did dentistry because your parents asked. That's also very different from the Indian parents. Most of the times I hear people, it's part of medicine, right? Either you become a doctor, engineer, or a lawyer. So it's quite common in this part of the world. So if you want to give back advice back to your younger self at that time, knowing what you know now, what would you say about choosing a career?
It's interesting because I feel like in so many ways I wouldn't do anything differently. Because I was just having this conversation last night with someone. The fact that I did dentistry, the fact that I achieved that, I practiced as a dentist for so many years. I think who I am today and the way I see people, the compassion that I can have for people, my understanding of the world is very deeply rooted in my training and work as a dentist as well. So I don't know that I would change that necessarily or do it differently. I do also think there is an element, and this may sound a little bit obnoxious, but I think there's an element of the fact that people take me more seriously as a speaker because they know my background. In this day and age, I feel like every other person is a coach, every third person is a speaker. They think they can put two words together, so they become a speaker. And so I do think that the fact that I have this academic rigor background, people are a little bit more respectful and they take me a little bit more seriously, that, okay, what I'm saying, I really mean it. I'm not just faffing. I'm not just, I'm not doing this because I'm passionate about it today. It's truly something that I'm choosing because my alternative is something that is very lucrative and well paying and well established.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think the advice would be maybe take more risks, but not necessarily to do anything differently.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is it's at a point of every phase of your life, every phase of our life, we have to actually give it a chance for whatever is there, and just go with the wind, go with the waves, and then see what it takes you.
Everything is a learning journey, right? And I think when I think about when I decided to do the coaching training as well, I never really thought that I would want to be a coach per se, because I felt like, well, if I'm going to have one-on-one impact as a coach, then I may as well be fixing your teeth. So, there is the same thing then. But I knew that learning never goes to waste. So it doesn't matter what situation you're in, it's what lessons can you take from it and what can you learn from it. And I think, coming back to your question, what advice would I give my 19 or 20-year-old self? It would maybe be that your identity is not your degree or your job. Like, you are a whole person. Your job or your degree is a part of your training, right? It's an education and it's something that you do, but it doesn't have to define who you are. So make sure you take the time to really explore who you are as a human being and develop all the parts of you, not just this one aspect.
I think that's very correct, because even, for example, myself, I started as a chartered accountant, and today, I think last 10 years, I have not done any accounting work. So it's quite
And aren't
funny,
you happier for it?
I think kind of, because accounting is, as we see, is some people see is a very cool job. They can they can just stay at the office and do whatever is necessary. But that's quite a stressful job as well, especially for me. Working on deadlines and trying to, produce that report, this report on time. So it's quite stressful as well. It can be, because your job never ends, right? Because it's daily transactions. If a business transactions happens daily, then the accounting happens daily and the reporting happens daily. So I think you're right. It's a journey, and it's a phase of your life which actually ultimately get you where you want to be, right? And you speak about communication, and even at today's civil service conference here in Maldives, you are now speaking about a model which I really liked, because you have put together what really mean to be human. And I think that that really has a connection, because I think one aspect I always figure out, what makes us different from the machines or from other animals, is our ability to communicate with each other, right? Because with words, we can actually make other people feel things, think things. We can instill thoughts in other people through communication and things like that. So can you elaborate a little bit on this human model?
Sure. So it's Speaking Human, which is this proprietary framework and model, and so it's HUMAN, and it's hearing to deeply listen to people. So not just hearing the words that are being said, but what is unsaid, what is in between the lines, what is behind the words that are coming out, and actually really being present. So also clearing your own mind and your own preconceived notions and your own preoccupations, so that you can truly hear and listen to the person speaking. The U is for understanding context. So the human context is something that's constantly changing and shifting. So the same person, I mean, you know, your best friend, your partner, someone who you might think you know really well, their mood can change their context. What might land and be okay in one situation might be completely not okay with them in a different situation. And so, how are you creating the space to be curious about where is this person coming from? Why are they wanting this? What's happening in their mind, right? Why are they using the words that they're using? What do they really need behind what they're telling me they're asking for? So it's that curiosity about understanding the context behind why a person shows up the way they do. And the M, so that's HU, and then M is moderating responses. So moderating responses is a really interesting one because I always tell people it's very, very important to apply this one, especially to yourself first and then to others, because there's conversations that are constantly going on internally in your own head. So whether I'm in conversation with you, but there's a script going on in my own mind, I have to first address that conversation and moderate that inner voice, that inner critic, that inner sort of judgment. And so control that voice and learn to be kind to ourselves and not speak to ourselves in a way that we know is inappropriate to speak to anybody else in. Right. And then once we've moderated internal worlds, how do we moderate the way we speak to other people? How do I get my point across to you? And it doesn't matter how good my idea or my point or how good my intention is. If I'm not able to communicate it to you in a way that it makes sense to you, in a way that it lands for you, then there's no point in it. So that's the moderation piece. A is for authenticity. So, you know, when we're constantly moderating for the people around us, when I'm constantly trying to adapt the way that I communicate to meet your needs, to meet so-and-so's needs, to sort of get my point across to another person, am I constantly shape-shifting? Am I constantly being different people? Or am I able to moderate how I land my message while being true and aligned to myself? But in order for me to do that, I have to know what authenticity means to me. Who am I authentically? Only if I know who I am and what alignment feels like to me, can I be authentic and aligned with it. And the other thing is, you know, people use authenticity today as an excuse for bad behavior. And I think it's really, really important to make that distinction, that authenticity doesn't mean behaving however you want and being hurtful to others and then saying, well, that's just who I am. That's not authenticity. That's disrespectful to other people. So understanding your values and living in alignment with that, that is authenticity.
So basically you're saying authenticity is actually being yourself while respecting to others' feelings and their culture and, you know,
absolutely. And I think authenticity is, it's like I said, it's about alignment. It's about, if I'm sitting here with you today as having this conversation versus if you go watch my podcast versus if you go on my LinkedIn versus you see me on a stage at the civil service conference or you see me at home talking to my own children, I'm the same person in all of those situations. I might communicate slightly differently depending on who I'm facing, but I'm still the same person. And you know that the core is the same. And actually in today's day and age, people are very aware and energetically aware of inauthenticity. You know, they smell it out very quickly. And that's where you lose trust. So if you're not authentic, you start to lose trust. And then the last one is N. So HUMAN, N for needs recognition and expression. So at the end of the day, every conversation, every conflict is generally driven by the fact that one or both people coming into this have some need. Right? And so hearing, understanding context, moderating and being authentic, all of that leads in the end to understanding, okay, what is your need here, Iyaz, and what is my need, and how can we find a common solution but also if you have a need, how do I understand and recognize your need? How do I ask for what I need? So, recognizing what we need is only part of the equation, but learning to ask for what we want is the second part.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get stuck on that piece because they're shy to ask, they're fearful that they're going to get turned down, they're scared of judgment. So equipping yourself and others with the ability to ask for what's needed to reach the end goal and the solution and the objective is really important.
Yeah. That's a really beautiful framework. I think that summarizes what a good communication should be, right? So needs of others, you're talking about being empathetic, right? Is it same as being empathy, or even further drilling down into what their needs really are?
I think it depends. I think, so on an individual level, I can look at my needs, right? My needs, there's physical, social, emotional, there's all these different types of needs that the individual has. There's professional, and so when I look at all of those needs across these different pillars, and I can say, okay, actually my professional life's going great, I don't really need anything as such here at the moment, but maybe it would be helpful if I had an extra hour in the day. Right? Now, how am I going to create that extra hour in the day? Okay, maybe I need my husband to be able to pick up the kids from school 2 or 3 times in a week so that I can create this extra hour for this thing that I need.
Yeah.
But then it's my responsibility to have the conversation with him. I can't expect him to figure out what my needs are. It's my responsibility to have the conversation and say, okay, this is the need that I have. This is how I possibly see us solving it. Do you think you can do this so that I can have my need met? So that's on an individual level. On an outward level, it's empathy. So empathy comes into emotional needs. So you might have an emotional need to be seen, heard, understood, feel significant. That's where empathy comes in. But in a leadership context, so a lot of the work that I do is with corporates and with leaders. So in a leadership context, it is, okay, what does my team need to be able to do the job that they need to do, to deliver the deliverables on time that they need to deliver? And how can I enable what needs to be provided for them to do their jobs best? Now, that as a leader might mean I have to go have the conversation with my boss and say, hey, this is what my team's working on. This is what they need. This is how they are going to achieve this. But to enable them to do this, I need XYZ. So sometimes it's very actual concrete things.
So it is like being a servant leader for your team, right?
And exactly. But on the team's perspective as well, it's also, as a leader, how do you create enough psychological safety? So the biggest issue with the needs part happens where there's not enough psychological safety in the workplace or in a relationship for someone to say, hey, this is what I need. And so a lot of people, and I said this today in the civil service conference, a lot of people say, oh, there's no point asking because that'll never get approved. And so they don't even bother asking. Years ago when I was in dental school in Australia, I did an overseas placement at AIMS in New Delhi, which is the biggest government hospital in India. And I just applied and I got it and I went and I did this. And when I was at AIMS, people were like, oh my God, who are you connected to? How did you manage to make this happen? How did you apply? You must have paid so much money. You must have pulled political connections to get this. And I said, no, there was a form online. I filled the form online and I did it. And people really couldn't believe that it was as simple as just asking. And that, and
because people are not used to it.
Yeah, people are not used to it. Exactly. People are used to going the back route to the back route to the back route.
Always,
in Hindi we have a word, it says jugaad. Like people are never looking for the clear solution, and or they assume that if I ask, it will be a no. So there's no point in me asking. I will just go and, either try to find loopholes, or I'll try to make do without. But eventually that leads to delays, disengagements, dysfunction. And so I really encourage people to just ask for what you need. Your worst case scenario is that the person says no, and then you're no worse off than when you asked. So, yeah.
True. And this comes to the theme of my podcast as well. And there's one question I ask from every guest. When are you going to retire?
Never. I think as long as my husband is around, I'm never going to retire. He'll never let me retire. So there's days where I tell him that, in Singapore, we have this concept, we say tai. It's like a fancy stay-at-home wife. And so there's days where I'm like, oh, all I want to do is be a tai and like just hang out with the kids and like just be mommy and not work and not think about anything and not worry about running a business. And my husband's like, please don't ever do that. You'll be insufferable. I think growth is too important to me, and I think service is too important to me. So I think even if I were to retire in the true sense of the word, where I'm not doing things for money anymore, I don't know that I would ever truly retire, because it would just turn towards service of community. So yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to retire. I hope not.
That's fantastic to know. That is what I call becoming unretirable. So this is why actually I when I look for guests, I look at their life, their story, and I interview people I believe who have achieved something in their life, which I call they have become unretirable. So because that, like you said, they have found their passion, they have found their purpose in their life, they are passionate about their growth, they are striving for growth all the time, and they also find their purpose connected to serving others, people. This is where I think actually they make an impact. They won't leave a legacy. Have you ever thought about something like that? I won't leave something behind.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily that I want to leave something behind, or that that it's about legacy, but I feel very, very strongly about the fact that I have a very privileged life. It's not always been easy. I had a very difficult, backstory in childhood, and but today, when I look around and I look at the immense privilege that I have, I think if I don't use my privilege to uplift those around me, or those who don't have the same privilege, then it's just a massive waste of my own privilege. And so I think that's kind of just the legacy that I want to leave behind. I mean, would it be really awesome to be very famous and have the world mourn me when I'm gone? Yeah, sure. But I don't think that that's what drives me. I think somewhere that's a little bit ego driven. I think it's more just, I would love to leave the world a better place than I found it, I guess.
Wonderful. I think that is the perfect way of thinking and the right mindset. Because if you really look at the people who have created impact in the world and whom we are talking today, even after centuries after they have left, are the people actually who never thought about leaving a legacy. They were actually very driven by the service. So if you take even from example in India, Mahatma Gandhi, I think when he went on hunger strikes, he would have never thought that after so many years, his story will be taught in textbooks in schools, right? So I think that is very important, and I think nobody can achieve that legacy by saying that I won't achieve a legacy. That's why I'm doing this. I think that's a perfect example as well. And Dr. Damini, do you think where actually you are this passion, this orientation for service, you have this mindset, came from? Was it because of your upbringing? Is it in your DNA because of your parents, or was any connections you can find in that?
That's a great question. I think ever since I can remember, from when I was very young. So I think, I lost my dad in a
Yeah.
car crash when I was one. And so my mom was a single parent and she was raising me by herself. She was a school teacher. Her salary was very little. We had no real financial support. So even though my father's family could afford it, we had no real financial support from them. And so financially, things were tough.
Yeah.
Despite that, near our house, not far from our house, there was an orphanage. So quite regularly, my mom and I would go there together from the time that I was a little kid. And she would sometimes she would take food for them. Sometimes we would go and just give our time. Like she would teach the kids. She would sit with them and teach them, and I would play with them. And so I think I learned very early on in my life that money is not the only way that you can give and add value. You can give with your time, with your skills. And so I think that was something that stayed with me. The fact that my mom nurtured in me this spirit of giving and doing. And it doesn't matter how bad your life is, there are people who are worse off and you can still always uplift them. So I think somewhere that's very deep seated in me. And so even today, I'm actually quite uncomfortable with the idea of just throwing money at donations. I do really feel like if you have a skill and you have the time and you have the ability, giving comes in lots of different forms. So that service, that spirit of service, I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah, that's very important, isn't it? I think even in some places we find this voluntarism is not a like everybody have it. It is something like a unique collection of people have.
Yeah,
but I think, don't you think everybody will have this need to actually, isn't it a human need to give back? Because I hear somebody, I hear somebody, because we are such a communal animal.
Yeah.
Right? We are social. Even it's our animal instinct or our being, the entire, because I think the way how Homo sapiens have evolved is that we cannot actually live alone, right? Because even we have structured our societies, our communities, our economies, even the globalization and all those things. Today even more, I don't think if any country can even live alone, right?
I think that's a very hard question to answer. It's a very, very complex question to answer because, like in Islam, for example, right? Giving is charity, and giving is built into the religion.
Of course.
Right? You have to, or you're expected to, and there's clear guidelines.
They're mandatory and optional,
exactly. But it's encouraged. It's strongly encouraged. I think when I look at certain societies where people are just living in a rat race, where people are just struggling to make ends meet, where everything and every day is a fight, I think those are the societies where people struggle maybe more with giving or with putting other people's needs above their own. So I'm not under any sort of misconception that my ability or my spirit to serve or give isn't a very privileged, like I'm coming from a very privileged position where I can, right? I think if I don't know if I would still be this person if I was struggling financially.
Okay.
I like to believe I still would be, but I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
the answer.
But
And
maybe you will still do something to serve, like your mom has done,
yeah,
right?
I hope
Yeah.
so. And that's what I like to believe. And,
Yeah.
it's a big part of it's something that my husband and I talk about all the time because our children are growing up very privileged. And
Yeah.
in Singapore, they really aren't exposed a lot to people
Yeah.
who are living in significantly worse off conditions. So, we do our best to expose them, to help them to understand the world around them, um, in the hope that they will. But yeah, I like to believe what you said, that
Mhm.
every human innately has a deep sense of wanting to serve and give. In reality, I don't know if that really
Yeah.
happens.
Maybe we have that innate need and ability, but maybe it is being suppressed and shut down
Mm,
by the circumstances,
mm,
like you mentioned. Yeah, because this is the same thing when it comes to, for example, even why I came up with this concept called becoming unretirable or the unretirable mindset framework. When I came up with it, is actually like I mentioned, I have been a chartered accountant and in finance. I have been in the pension industry. I was responsible for setting up the pension fund as a board member at the beginning in Maldives. So we were always encouraging people for retirement, but certain circumstances and certain incidences in my life actually taught me certain lessons
mm,
that actually this traditional norm of retirement is actually not the end of your career or end of life.
mm,
And if you do that actually without having some purpose, some passion, which you can, like you are doing, to carry on for the rest of your life, that could be actually
yeah.
technically a death
Yeah,
sentence,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. I mean, look, I think one of the best examples of
Mm,
someone that I personally have seen be unretirable
yeah,
is my own father-in-law.
yeah.
He retired a few years ago, at I think 60 or 62, he retired. And I mean, the man hasn't stopped since.
Mm.
He did a PhD after he retired. He set up a consultancy. He was doing some consulting work. He's still doing that. Um, a lot of charity work. He climbed Kilimanjaro.
Oh,
He did Everest Base Camp. So he's constantly setting himself physical and intellectual
mm,
challenges. Um, and are all of them bringing in a financial benefit? No, but it's unretired. It's not that he's just retired and sitting around doing nothing, just drawing
mm,
down on his pension. He's constantly growing and
yeah.
pushing himself. And I think that perfectly, to me,
Stepping out of his comfort
yeah,
zones. Yeah,
yeah. And embracing life and
yeah,
embracing all there is in the world to know and see and do. And I think that's incredible. And
yeah.
I'm in awe of it. So I I hope that I can be
Yeah.
unretirable like him. Yeah.
Hopefully one day. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't be
So
climbing any mountains though.
yeah, but
It's
I
not my
think
thing.
yeah, but I think you're climbing the mountain of the professional speaker.
Yes. Yes. Oh, what a mountain.
Yes. Yeah. So this has been a great conversation, Dr. Damini. And to end with, I always ask my guests to share one wisdom or one insight which they have got in quite early in their life or some part of their life,
Mhm,
which they or even which actually changed their entire life,
mhm.
and a mantra or insight which they have been living. Is there anything like that for you?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think it would actually probably be to do with my book. So
yeah,
my book is called Speaking Human: The Hardest
yeah,
Conversations You'll Have with Yourself. And I think, communication, relationships, human connection, it all starts with self-awareness.
okay,
I think it all starts with learning to have the difficult conversations with yourself, learning to recognize your patterns, understand Like, hear yourself deeply, understand your context and why you are the way you are, why you get triggered by the things you get triggered by. Control that inner voice, that inner critic. Understand what authenticity means to you. Who are you? What do you stand for? What feels aligned to you? What are you willing to negotiate on? And what are your non negotiables in life? And what is it that you need in life to truly be happy, whole, fulfilled? So, when you start to create that understanding of yourself, that self awareness on its own allows you to be more present with other people because you're not constantly reacting. So I think it's a lot of deep inner work. I think it's really getting to know yourself and getting to be comfortable. And it's not about fixing things internally, but getting to be comfortable with who you are and coming at other relationships with the self awareness that will really change the way that you show up in the world.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Damini. This has been a
Thank
great
you.
chat and conversation. I'm sure there are so many nuggets of wisdom, so many takeaways from your life and from your teachings as well, and what you speak on, speak human, right?
Yep.
So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Az.
Yes.
I'm glad we finally made this happen.
We've been trying for a year,
Yeah.
I think, like, to do this, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
And to my listeners and viewers, until we come back again, remember some of the things which Dr. Damini has told us on this episode, especially about serving others, how you find, when you find a passion, and even if you are in one career, how you can actually change that career and find your real passion and purpose in life, which you can carry on for the rest of your life, which I call becoming unretirable. So until we come back again, don't forget to be unretirable and don't forget to be awesome. Thank you.